I stood at the front of the boardroom, my prototype humming softly on the table beside me. 5 years of work. 5 years of late nights, failed tests, and breakthroughs that made my hands shake with excitement. The solar battery system sat there, sleek and silent, holding enough power to change everything for rural communities that had never known reliable electricity. Evan Cross, our CEO, sat at the head of the table. 52 years old, silver hair, perfect suit. The board members flanked him on both sides, 15 people who'd watched me present progress reports dozens of times before. Today was different though. Today was the final presentation before investor meetings. Today was supposed to be my victory. I opened my laptop, ready to begin. Evan raised his hand. Actually, Diana, before you start, I need to address something with the board. My finger froze over the keyboard. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. We've made a decision regarding project leadership, he continued, not looking at me. Effective immediately, we're transitioning to younger leadership. Fresh direction. New energy. The room went silent. I stood there, laptop open, 5 years of my life about to disappear. What? The word came out smaller than I intended. Evan finally looked at me. His expression smooth and practiced. It's nothing personal, Diana. You've done good foundational work. But the company's evolving. We need someone who can scale this aggressively. He gestured to the woman sitting 3 seats down. Kimberly Vaughn. 32 years old, operations director, known throughout the company for one thing, taking credit for other people's ideas. Kimberly will be taking over as lead engineer and public face of the project, Evan said. The board members nodded. Some avoided my eyes. Others smiled at Kimberly like this was a promotion they'd all agreed on weeks ago. Maybe they had. You're removing me? Asked, voice shaking. From my own project. It's not your project, Diana, Evan said coolly. It's Soltara's project. You were an employee. Valuable one. But this is business. Kimberly stood, walked to the front, and stood beside my prototype. My prototype. She smiled at me like we were colleagues transitioning smoothly. I looked at the board. No one spoke up. No one defended me. Don't take it personally, Evan said again. I gathered my laptop. My hands were shaking. I walked out of that boardroom knowing I'd just lost everything. I drove home in silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The city passed by in a blur of lights and buildings, some of them powered by early versions of the technology I'd helped develop. Technology I'd given everything to perfect. At home, I sat in my kitchen and stared at nothing. 56 years old. A lifetime of work reduced to foundational. 23 years at Soltara Innovations. 5 years on this specific project. Gone in 5 minutes. My phone buzzed. An email notification. Company-wide memo. Subject. Soltara's next-gen prototype launch announcement. I opened it with trembling fingers. We're thrilled to announce that Kimberly Vaughn will lead the final development and launch of our revolutionary solar storage system. Under her innovative leadership, we expect to bring this game-changing technology to market within 3 months. 3 months. I told them it needed at least 6 more months of testing. The safety protocols weren't finalized. The heat regulation system needed refinement. They were rushing it. To impress investors. To hit quarterly targets. And they'd put Kimberly in charge. Someone who'd never built anything from scratch in her life. 2 days later, Soltara held a press conference. I watched it on my laptop, sitting in my dark living room like a ghost haunting my own life. Kimberly stood at a podium, my prototype beside her, cameras flashing. She wore a sharp blue suit and smiled with the confidence of someone who believed she deserved to be there. This system represents a team effort, she said smoothly. Led by Soltara's new innovation leadership, we've refined and perfected a technology that will revolutionize affordable green power for underserved communities. A reporter asked about the development timeline. We've accelerated the process significantly, Kimberly replied. Through aggressive optimization and modern engineering approaches, We've cut development time in half. My jaw tightened. Aggressive optimization. That's what they were calling it. I leaned closer to the screen, studying the technical display behind her. The system diagram. The code interface showing on the monitor. Then I saw it. A change in the safety module code. A modification I didn't recognize. Someone had altered my heat regulation protocol. The section that prevented overheating under high voltage loads. They'd simplified it. Made it faster, more efficient on paper. But wrong. Dangerously wrong. I spent that night at my kitchen table, surrounded by old printouts and handwritten notes. I ran the calculations 3 times. Then a 4th. Then a 5th. The modified code would work fine under normal conditions. But push the system past 70% capacity during peak heat, and the battery cells would overheat. Rapidly. At best, the units would shut down. At worst, they'd catch fire. And they were planning to ship thousands of these to rural communities. Places where fire departments were hours away. Where a single malfunction could destroy homes. I grabbed my phone and typed an email to Evan. The modified heat regulation code is unsafe. Under high load conditions, the system will overheat. Please halt production until we can review the safety protocols. Lives could be at risk. I hit send and waited. His assistant replied 3 hours later. Mr. Cross thanks you for your concern but asks that you refrain from further interference in company projects. Your employment agreement included a non-interference clause. Continued contact may result in legal action. I stared at that message until the screen dimmed. They wouldn't listen. They were going to launch a dangerous product, and they'd silenced the one person who knew it was broken. That weekend I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the modified code in my head, running through scenarios of what could go wrong. I finally gave up at 3 in the morning and went to my garage. My original prototype sat on the workbench, covered with a tarp. The first version, before all the company modifications and improvements. I pulled off the tarp and ran my hand over the casing. Then I remembered something. The transfer agreement. When I'd first developed the prototype, it had been during a grant-funded research period. The company had filed paperwork to acquire full rights, but those rights required annual renewal payments and documentation. Standard procedure for grant-based technology. I rushed back inside and pulled up my old files. Contract folders. Patent applications. Transfer agreements. And there it was. The renewal notice from 2 years ago. Solterra had missed the payment deadline during a budget restructuring. The transfer had expired. I checked the patent database, my heart pounding. Owner. Diana Whitaker. The prototype they were using, the one about to go to market, legally belonged to me. They'd never completed the acquisition. They just assumed they owned it. I sat in my garage staring at my prototype. My actual prototype, the one they thought they'd taken from me. The soft hum of the power cells filled the quiet space like a heartbeat. They took everything I built, I whispered. So I'll build it again. Better. Powered up the system. The LED indicators flickered green. All systems stable. All safety protocols intact. The version that worked. My phone rang. Victor Hale. An old friend from grad school who'd gone into renewable energy consulting. Diana, I heard what happened, he said. That's completely unacceptable. It's done, Victor. They made their choice. But you didn't deserve that. 23 years of loyalty, and they just... He paused. Have you thought about what's next? I don't know. I just know I can't let them launch a defective system. What if I told you someone else would listen? Someone who actually values innovation over ego. I sat up straighter. Who? Bright Core Technologies. They're Solterra's biggest competitor. And they've been trying to develop a similar system for years. If you had something to offer them. Victor, I can't just. Why not? They stole your work. They ignored your safety warnings. They chose ambition over lives. You don't owe them loyalty. I looked at my prototype. Let me think about it. Think fast. I can arrange a meeting. 3 days later, I walked into Brightcore's headquarters. Glass and steel, minimalist design, everything spotless and modern. The receptionist directed me to the top floor. Nina Porter, Brightcore's CEO, met me in her office. Early 40s, sharp eyes, firm handshake. She got straight to business. Victor says you have something we should see. I opened my laptop and showed her the prototype specifications. The real ones, not Soltara's modified version. She leaned forward, studying the data. This is exactly what we've been trying to develop, she said quietly. How did Soltara mess this up? They didn't mess it up. They stole it, modified it dangerously, and are about to launch it knowing it's unsafe. Nina's expression hardened. And you own the patent? I do. They never completed the transfer agreement. What do you want from us? I met her eyes. Resources to perfect this. Team that will listen. And a guarantee that this technology will be used responsibly, not rushed to market to impress shareholders. Nina smiled. We don't poach talent, Diana. We partner with it. If you're willing to work with us, I promise you'll have full creative control and proper safety protocols. She extended her hand. Let's make Soltara regret every meeting they ever had. I shook it. Brightcore's testing facility was everything I dreamed of. Proper equipment, talented engineers, and most importantly, people who listened when I explained the safety requirements. We ran the first test on a Tuesday morning. I'd spent 2 weeks refining the original prototype, fixing minor issues I'd never had time to address at Soltara. The system hummed to life, indicators glowing steady green. We pushed it to 50% capacity. Stable. 70%. Still stable. 90% peak heat conditions. No overheating. No system failures. Just smooth, consistent power output. The Brightcore engineers cheered. One of them, a young woman named Priya, hugged me. This is incredible. This is going to change everything. For the first time in months I felt alive. Not just useful but valued. These people saw what I'd built, understood what it could do, and wanted to help me make it better. Victor visited that afternoon. How's it going? Better than I imagined. Good. Because Soltara's launch event is next week. Evan's doing a full media circus. Magazine covers, live demonstrations, the works. I watched the prototypes display. Let them. You're not worried. No. Because I know what's going to happen. And when it does, we'll be ready. Soltara's marketing campaign was everywhere. Billboards, social media, tech magazines. Evan's face on the cover of Innovation Quarterly with the headline, The Future of Energy. Kimberly became the face of the project. Interviews, podcasts, conference appearances. She talked about her revolutionary approach to energy storage, her breakthrough designs, her vision for the future. I watched it all from Brightcore's lab, running test after test on my system, making it stronger, more efficient, safer. One evening, Victor forwarded me an advertisement. Soltara's units being shipped to installation sites across 3 countries. Rural communities in Guatemala, Kenya, and rural Texas. Thousands of units. All with the flawed code. They're actually doing it, Victor said. Shipping a defective product globally. I stared at the ad showing Kimberly standing next to a shipping container. They have no idea what's coming. Diana, people could get hurt. I know. That's why I tried to warn them. But they wouldn't listen. Now they'll learn the hard way. Nina walked into the lab. Our investors are asking when we'll be ready to go public with our version. I looked at my prototype. Soon. Let them launch first. Let them celebrate. Then we show the world what a real energy revolution looks like. 2 days before Soltara's launch, I did something I'd been debating for weeks. I sent an anonymous tip to a tech journalist I'd worked with years ago. Someone I trusted to dig deeper. Potential safety issues with Soltara's new solar battery system. Modified code may cause overheating. Worth investigating. The journalist replied within hours. Who is this? I didn't respond. The next day, a small article appeared. Questions raised about Soltara's upcoming launch. It mentioned anonymous concerns from someone familiar with the technology. Nothing detailed, just enough to plant doubt. Soltara's PR team immediately issued a statement. Baseless rumors from disgruntled former employees. Our product has passed all safety testing and meets industry standards. Evan appeared on a morning show, smooth and confident. This is what happens when a company makes bold moves. People who resist change try to undermine progress. I watched from my laptop, hands folded. He thought he'd won. He thought silencing me had ended the problem. But I wasn't trying to stop them anymore. I was just documenting, watching, waiting. The first unit malfunction happened during a private pre-launch demo. A video leaked online. Sparks flying from a battery unit. Evan's team rushing forward with fire extinguishers. Soltara deleted the video. Issued another statement. Minor technical glitch. Fully resolved. But the internet never forgets. The video spread. Slowly at first. Then faster. Soltara's stock price wobbled. Just a little. 4% down. Analysts called it pre-launch jitters. Evan issued confident statements. Kimberly posted photos of successful installations, smiling with community members. But I noticed she'd gone quiet on social media. No more daily updates. No more technical interviews. Victor visited the Brightcore lab. Are you sure we should wait? People are starting to ask questions. I was calibrating my prototype safety regulator, an improved version that made the system 40% more stable than my original design. We wait. Let Soltara's launch happen. Let them stand in front of investors and media and celebrate their success. Then the truth comes out naturally. And if someone gets hurt, the failures will happen during the demonstration, Victor. Under controlled conditions. High profile. That's when they'll see what they've done. Nina entered the lab. Diana, we're ready. The engineers have run every test. This system is flawless. Are you sure you want your name front and center on this? I looked at my reflection in the prototype's polished surface. 56 years old. Fired. Forgotten. Yes. I want everyone to know exactly who built this. Soltara's grand launch took place on a Thursday afternoon. A massive venue, hundreds of attendees, live streamed to thousands more. Investors, journalists, government officials. Everyone who mattered in the energy sector. Evan took the stage first, silver hair perfect, smile bright. Today we're not just launching a product. We're launching a revolution. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. Kimberly joined him, standing beside the demo unit. Their flagship model, the one they'd shipped globally, now positioned under hot stage lights for maximum visibility. This system represents the future, Evan continued. Clean, affordable energy for everyone. And we're bringing it to market today. He gestured to Kimberly. She pressed the activation button. The unit powered up smoothly. Indicators green. Display showing steady output. Evan beamed. As you can see, completely stable. Completely safe. This is the technology that will change the world. I watched the live stream from Brightcore's conference room, surrounded by our engineering team. Nina stood beside me, arms folded. Any second now, I murmured. On screen, Evan continued talking, explaining the system's features. The unit had been running for 5 minutes at high capacity under hot stage lights. Then I saw it. A small flicker in the display. Temperature spike. Kimberly noticed too. She glanced at the monitor, smiled nervously, and tried to adjust something. The temperature kept rising. The warning alarm started as a soft beep. Then louder. The display flashed red. Kimberly stepped back from the unit. Evan kept talking, trying to cover the noise, but the alarm grew louder. Smoke began rising from the battery compartment. Someone in the front row pointed. The cameras swiveled. Evan stopped mid-sentence. This is just, he started. The unit burst into flames. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Security rushed forward with extinguishers. Investors scattered. The live stream shook as the cameraman backed away, but the lens stayed focused on the burning unit, on Evan's stunned face, on Kimberly frozen in horror. The fire spread to the display monitors behind them before the extinguishers finally suppressed it. White foam everywhere. Smoke filling the venue. Alarms blaring. The live stream cut to black. Our conference room stayed silent. Then Priya whispered, "Oh my God." Nina looked at me. "That's going to be everywhere in 10 minutes. "I know." Victor checked his phone. "It's already trending. Solterra solar catastrophe." The video's been shared 50,000 times. I felt no satisfaction. No victory. Just a deep, tired sadness that they'd ignored every warning and let it come to this. "We announce tomorrow," Nina said quietly. "Let them collapse tonight. We reveal the real solution tomorrow." He nodded. Tomorrow. By morning, the disaster had consumed the internet. Videos from every angle. Analysis pieces. Investigative reports about Solterra's rushed development timeline. News headline. Solterra's $500 million solar catastrophe. CEO under fire after product explodes during launch. Lawsuits were filed within hours. Communities that had installed the units demanded immediate removal. Investors threatened legal action. International regulators launched investigations. Evan disappeared from public view. No statements. No interviews. Kimberly deleted all her social media accounts. The company's stock dropped 40% by noon. Employees started leaking internal documents. Emails showing Evan had been warned about safety concerns. Messages proving they'd rushed production to hit quarterly targets. Everything I'd suspected now public. Nina called me that afternoon. "Are you ready?" I stood in Brightcore's main conference hall, looking at my prototype. My real prototype. The one that worked. The one that wouldn't catch fire. The one I'd spent 5 years building and 3 months perfecting. "I'm ready. Then let's show the world what real innovation looks like." Brightcore's announcement was the opposite of Solterra's disaster. No flashy stage. No dramatic music. Just a clean demonstration in a testing facility with proper safety protocols. Nina opened with a simple statement. "We're here to show you a solar storage system that actually works." I stood beside the prototype, calm and professional. No longer the fired engineer. Just an expert presenting her life's work. We powered up the system. Steady green indicators. No alarms. We pushed it to full capacity under heated conditions. Perfectly stable. We ran it for 2 hours straight while journalists watched, tested and verified. The unit never wavered. When we finished, the room erupted in applause. But this wasn't celebration. It was relief. Proof that the technology could work if built correctly. A reporter raised her hand. "Ms. Whitaker, isn't this the same core system that Solterra just failed to launch?" He nodded. "It's based on the same research, but properly implemented, with proper safety protocols. That's the difference between rushing innovation and respecting it." "Were you involved with Solterra's project?" "I developed the original prototype. Solterra removed me from the project 3 months ago." The room went silent. Cameras focused on my face. "You built the system they tried to launch." "I built the foundation. They modified it without understanding the safety requirements. Then they ignored warnings about the risks." Another reporter checked her phone. "Ms. Whitaker, are you aware that the patent for this technology is registered under your name?" I smiled slightly. "Yes, I'm aware." The internet exploded within hours. The woman Solterra fired actually owned the prototype they failed to launch. Every tech blog, every news outlet, every social media platform carried the story. Journalists dug up my history at Solterra. 23 years of service. 5 years developing the solar battery system. Fired without explanation. They found the expired transfer agreement. The missed renewal payment. The fact that Solterra had been using technology they never actually owned. Public opinion shifted instantly. From a company that had a product failure to a company that had stolen technology, modified it dangerously, and fired the engineer who'd warned them. Soltara's stock dropped another 20%. Brightcore's stock soared 30%. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Interview requests, speaking invitations, partnership offers. I ignored most of them. But one call I couldn't ignore came that evening. Evan's assistant, the same one who'd told me to stop interfering. Mr. Cross would like to meet with you privately to discuss resolving this situation. There's nothing to discuss. He's willing to offer a substantial settlement. Full public acknowledgement of your contributions. Whatever you need. Pause. Fine. Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Brightcore's offices. He comes alone. She agreed. Victor called immediately after. Diana, are you sure about this? I want him to see what he destroyed. And I want him to know it's over. Evan walked into Brightcore's conference room at exactly 2 o'clock. He looked terrible. Gray skin. Exhausted eyes. The silver hair less perfect. He'd aged 5 years in 3 days. I sat at the table, Nina beside me. Victor stood near the door. Evan tried to smile. Diana. Thank you for agreeing to meet. You have 10 minutes. He sat down heavily. This has all gotten out of hand. The media's exaggerating everything. Yes, we had a technical failure, but we can fix this together. Fix what exactly? We can bring you back. Full title restoration. Senior engineer position. Public acknowledgement of your work. Name on the patents. Whatever you need. I stared at him. You think this is about a title? I'm trying to make this right. You fired me in front of the entire board. You called my life's work foundational. You put someone unqualified in charge. You ignored safety warnings. You launched a dangerous product. And now, only after it exploded on live television, you want to make it right. His jaw tightened. We made mistakes. I made mistakes. But we can still salvage this. The company's reputation. The company's reputation is gone, Evan. You destroyed it yourself. I slid a document across the table. This is the signed purchase agreement. Brightcore bought the exclusive rights to my patent 2 days ago. For $900 million. Evan went pale. $900 million. Plus equity stake. Plus full creative control. He stared at the document. You sold to our competitor. I sold to people who valued the work. Who understood the technology. Who prioritized safety over quarterly earnings. We can match that. We can. No, Nina interrupted. You can't. The deal's done. Patent's ours. And without it, Soltara has no solar storage product at all. Evan looked at me with something between hatred and desperation. How could you do this? I stood up. You made a choice, Evan. You chose ambition over integrity. You chose ego over safety. You chose to silence the person who built everything you tried to take credit for. I didn't destroy Soltara. You did. I just refused to go down with it. I walked to the door. Your 10 minutes are up. The deal had actually been finalized 3 days before the confrontation. Nina, Victor, and I had spent a long evening in her office, reviewing the final terms. $900 million, Nina had said, sliding the contract across her desk. Plus 12% equity stake in Brightcore. Plus full authority over the solar division's development. I'd stared at the number. 900 million. More money than I'd ever imagined. More than enough to retire, to never work again, to just disappear. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the next clause. And guaranteed funding for responsible deployment. I'd read aloud. No rushed launches. No safety shortcuts. No modifications without designer approval. Exactly, Nina had said. This technology will be deployed properly. The way you always intended. I'd sign my name slowly, carefully. Diana Whittaker, owner and lead designer. Victor had raised his water glass. To the woman who turned betrayal into 900 million reasons to smile. I'd smiled, but not because of the money. Because somewhere in rural Guatemala, Kenya, and Texas, communities would get safe, reliable power. Because the technology I'd spent 5 years building would finally be used correctly. Because I'd proven that competence, integrity, and patience were worth more than ego and ambition. You didn't just beat them, Diana, Victor had said. You bankrupted them. He was right. Without the solar storage system, Solterra had no flagship product. No competitive advantage. No future. I'd beaten them. But more importantly, I'd saved my work from being destroyed. Solterra filed for bankruptcy 6 weeks later. Investor lawsuits piled up. Regulatory fines kept coming. Employees fled to competitors. The company that had once employed 3,000 people shrank to a skeleton crew handling liquidation. Evan resigned under pressure. His assets frozen pending multiple investigations. Kimberly testified against him in depositions, trying to save herself. She claimed she'd only followed orders, that she'd been misled about the system's readiness. Nobody believed her. The board dissolved. The offices emptied. Solterra Innovations, once a leader in renewable energy, became a cautionary tale about hubris and corporate greed. I watched it all from my new office at Bright Core. Large windows overlooking the city. A team of talented engineers who actually listened. Resources to build properly. One afternoon an envelope arrived. An invitation. The Global Energy Summit, the most prestigious conference in the field. They wanted me to deliver the keynote address. The same conference where Evan had spoken 3 years ago, back when Solterra was thriving. Back when I was still just a senior engineer nobody had heard of. Nina appeared in my doorway. Are you going to accept? I held the invitation, reading it again. Keynote speaker. My name in bold letters. Yes, I said quietly. I think it's time. The conference was in San Francisco. 2,000 attendees. Every major company in renewable energy. Investors, innovators, researchers. The people who shaped the future of clean power. I stood backstage, listening to the introduction. Please welcome Dr. Diana Whitaker, lead designer of the Phoenix Solar Storage System and Chief Innovation Officer at Bright Core Technologies. The applause started before I even walked out. I stepped onto the stage, blinking in the spotlight. The crowd was on their feet. A standing ovation before I'd said a single word. I adjusted the microphone and waited for the noise to settle. 5 years ago, I began. I was told my time had passed. That innovation belonged to the young. That my experience was less valuable than someone else's ambition. The room went silent. I was removed from a project I'd spent 5 years building. Told I was being set aside for fresh direction. Told not to take it personally. I paused, letting that sink in. But here's what I learned. Wisdom doesn't age. It matures. Experience doesn't slow innovation. Prevents disaster. And the people who tell you your time is over are usually the ones most afraid of what you still have to build. More applause. I saw familiar faces in the crowd. Former Solterra employees who'd reached out to apologize. Engineers from other companies who'd followed my story. Young women who'd told me I inspired them. And in the back row, barely visible, I saw him. Evan Cross. Disheveled suit. Lone. Butching. I didn't look away. Kept speaking. The solar storage system you've heard about isn't just technology, I continued. It's proof that doing things right matters more than doing things fast. That safety protocols exist for a reason. That cutting corners in pursuit of profit will always end badly. I showed slides of the system's deployment. Rural communities with reliable power for the first time. Schools with electricity for computers. Clinics with refrigeration for vaccines. Real impact. Real change. This is what innovation looks like when you respect the process. When you value expertise. When you build for people, not for quarterly earnings reports. The applause was deafening. Cameras flashed. I saw reporters typing frantically on laptops. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. People approached afterward, wanting to shake my hand, to ask questions, to share their own stories of being underestimated. I answered every question, shook every hand, stayed until the last person left. Victor found me afterward. That was incredible. It felt good, saying it out loud. All of it. Did you see Evan? I saw him. He left halfway through. Smiled. Good. He heard enough. The speech went viral within hours. The Phoenix engineer's message to Silicon Valley. Every major outlet covered it. My face on magazine covers. Interview requests from everywhere. Headlines called me an inspiration. A symbol of resilience. Proof that age and experience mattered. Brightcore's stock surged. Orders for the Phoenix system doubled. Nina hired 50 more engineers to keep up with demand. Solterra officially dissolved 3 months later. The name disappeared from the energy sector. Evan vanished from public life entirely. His reputation destroyed beyond repair. I didn't celebrate. I just kept working. Improving the system. Training the new team. Making sure every unit we shipped was safe, reliable, and properly tested. But one afternoon, Victor called with something unexpected. There's a group of women entrepreneurs starting a foundation. They want to fund women-led engineering startups. They asked if you'd be interested in contributing. I sat back in my chair. $900 million. More than I needed. More than I could spend. Tell them I'm very interested. I visited my old lab one last time before it was demolished. Solterra's former headquarters. Now just an empty building waiting for new tenants. The lab was dusty and silent. Equipment gone. Desks empty. The whiteboard still had equations I'd written 2 years ago, never erased. I found an old photo taped to a cabinet. My original team, smiling after our first successful test. 4 of them had joined me at Brightcore. The others had moved to different companies, carrying the lessons we'd learned together. I smiled and whispered, "We did it right this time." My phone rang. Nina. Diana, I have a proposal. Brightcore wants to establish a new division. The Whitaker Innovation Foundation. Focused on mentoring women engineers and funding projects that prioritize safety and social impact over profit. I looked around the empty lab. All those years. All those struggles. All those moments of doubt. I'd be honored. Good. Because we also want you to lead it. I laughed. I thought I was supposed to be retired by now. Retired. Diana, you're just getting started. 6 months later, I stood in a university auditorium addressing 300 young women studying engineering. Students who'd grown up being told STEM wasn't for girls. Who'd faced doubts and obstacles. Who wondered if they could make it. Never let anyone decide when your time is up, I told them. Because the moment they try to bury you, they're actually watering your roots. I saw tears in some eyes. Fierce determination in others. These women would face the same battles I had. The same dismissals. The same people telling them they weren't enough. But they'd also seen that it was possible to fight back. To value themselves. To turn betrayal into opportunity. You are not too young, too old, too inexperienced, or too different, I continued. You are exactly what the world needs. And when someone tells you otherwise, remember. They're not rejecting you. They're revealing their own limitations. The applause filled the hall. As I stepped down from the podium, a young woman approached. Maybe 22. Nervous but excited. "Thank you," she said. "For not giving up. For showing us what's possible." Smiled. "Thank you for being here. For choosing this path. For being brave enough to build the future." As I left the auditorium, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The firing. The betrayal. The late nights rebuilding what they'd tried to destroy. I was no longer the fired engineer. I was the woman who'd turned humiliation into $900 million. Who'd transformed betrayal into a legacy. And I was just getting started.